Everyone, and welcome back to another video demonstration of Iris on Android. So we're back on the S23 device, and we're going to be going over the radial menu that we slightly touched on. So last time we went over the More section, and that's because these are all the map tools that are a bit easier and pardon me, a bit more intuitive for the end user. So we're going to start here, and we'll just slowly work our way through demonstrating what each element can do. We'll start with the bearing range button here. So if you give that a press, you'll see that a pin gets dropped on the map. You'll also notice that in the bottom left, there's some details exposed to the end user about that pin. So like I mentioned earlier, we are using the physical phone's GPS for our location in Iris at the moment, and when we place this pin down, what's happening is as our position updates to Iris, it's calculating both the bearing and range to this pin. So as we move around, this will update. And you can also notice that in the top left, you might see that pin on the compass. So if we scroll around, we can then see the bearing to the pin. You'll notice that that looks the same as what's shown on you. What's shown by the map to you. So the S23 symbol here is our self, and that's the pin there. So that's pretty simple, and we'll move on to the next thing. Much like every other tool we've discussed, you can just get rid of it by pressing the X there, and then we can use that north up button to get centered again. So the next button is actually a pin drop. And if we go ahead and press that, it looks a bit similar, except it gives us a bit more detail. So you'll notice that we also get the address if internet is available on Iris, if it's reachable. You'll notice that we get the coordinates, the altitude, and we also have a couple buttons here. So this can be handy just to get some details about a position. Or if we, consider this an area of interest or a point of interest, we can go ahead and actually click this favorite button, and you'll see that it changes to a yellowish gold color there. And that means that when we press this X, it remains on the map. We can press it at any point, and we can get that detail pane back up, and we can unfavorite, and we can simply just close it away to get rid of it. So the next button is actually a CASEVAC, and this is quite high priority depending on the situation, right? So if you're using this, you want it to be simple, you want it to be straightforward. So what we allow is for the user to just tap and hold anywhere on the map and place it down instantly. So, you don't want to be fiddling around with coordinates in a medical emergency or a high stress environment. And then on the left-hand side here, you'll notice that we can go through and complete this form. We can simply just plus to add patients of different levels of priority. We can ask for additional equipment, etc., etc. Once we finish this form and we're satisfied with what we've done, we can just click that send button in the top right, pardon me. You'll notice a symbol gets placed on the map. This is visible to everyone. So when we discussed sending messages to global versus sending messages to our local network or our echelon, CASEVAC always takes the highest priority. It always gets sent globally. And this is because, given the nature of the form, it is important to get to who it needs to get to, right? So you don't have to fiddle around with the send menu. When you press send, it's sent to everyone. We can tap and hold the CASEVAC here, and we can actually see an edit button now. So if we make any mistakes, we can change those. We can also change the marker, how it appears on the map, if we so desire, but we'll get back into this a little bit more later. You'll notice that there's also a delete button here. So if we make a mistake, we can delete it and everybody can sort of relax. If somebody does press this out of curiosity and they don't want to send it to everyone, that X button in the top right will simply just delete it before it's sent. So the next item here is actually mill symbols. Once we give that a tap, you'll see that more options appear. We'll work through this one by one. Yeah, so we'll start with tracks. And this is sort of your symbol creation. So Iris allows for full mill standard 2525D symbology, and it's fully customizable from the base up. So what this means is it can be a bit complex to the end user. However, we try eliminate that complexity where we can. You'll notice on the left-hand side, there's only a couple of options here, and you might be asking, well, that doesn't look like enough fields to fill out full standard symbology, and you'd be right. However, as we work through, and for example, if we change the symbol set to air, you'll notice that more appear. We try streamline the process, and this, sort of helps the end user understand what's going on in front of them and what changes they can and can't make. Let's assume we want to make a fixed wing fighter on the map. We've already specified that it's air unit, it's real and it's friendly. And then we can see, well, just make our way down the list. We'll choose military. And then you'll see another type pulls up. We'll choose fixed wing. And then we'll choose fighter. Right? So it sort of points you in the right direction depending on what you're trying to make. You'll notice that the crosshair is back there on the map, and that's because we can move this around and give it a tap to move the symbol. Once we're satisfied with what we've done, we can go ahead and click send there, and this will go to everyone. So this doesn't mean it's permanent by any means. We can tap it and get some information about it, and you can see that, well, it's friendly, it's military, and it's a fighter. You can see where it is, its location, who made it, when it was created, etc., etc. But say we want to delete a symbol, we can then long tap on the same symbol. You'll see that underneath it's been selected, and you'll notice that edit button is back. If we go ahead and tap that, we're back in the same screen. Once again, we can move it around, or we can delete it. So I have another one here for demonstration. If we go ahead and edit this, you'll notice there's a couple tabs at the top. So we'll now talk through those. So this is just some more information if you so desire. As I said, we allow for the full 2525D symbology set. So that even includes things such as damage status, and that's where you'll find this, as well as nationality, and that's where you'll find that. So say we want to make it slightly damaged, we can then choose that. You'll notice the symbol updates. Say we want to fill out those altitude and course and heading parameters that we saw earlier but didn't touch, that's on the next tab. So we can choose a course, we can set it manually. Maybe we'll say it's going at 120 kilometers an hour, 150 is fine, and it's 25 meters in the air. Not very realistic, but it'll do for the demonstration. Once we go ahead and click send, you'll notice that those details get added. You'll also notice that the symbology sits above the map according to that altitude. If we then tap it, you'll see those parameters have been set. And there's a couple more features I'll talk about, and that last tab you may notice I didn't touch on, but we'll get back to that shortly. So in this mill symbols section, there's a couple different buttons. Most users will end up creating very similar symbols repetitively, if not the same. If you want to place the exact same thing you just did down again, we allow for that with the place last button. If you just go ahead and tap that, you'll notice instantly it's the same. The additional information such as course and heading, well, it's not there because how are we gonna, how are we to say it's heading the same direction, right? We're more focused on the symbol itself. There's also a button for your favorites. And this is essentially what have you been creating a lot recently. Well, we made a fighter, and we made a fighter with a damage status. So both of those appear. quite similar to the place last, you know, you can just give it a tap and it'll place down. However, it's just a couple more of your recent options. You may also have seen that when we were in this edit form and we were changing its symbol set, you saw air at the top with popular. That's because there's a lot of different entity types and subtypes. And like I said, a lot of the time you'll be working within the same unit class, if you will. Say you are placing plans for several land units, you might be differing what they are exactly, however they all fall under land unit. So we place that at the top there under the popular section. Now the last button here is a bit different. It's more for the receiving user rather than coordinating user. Say you're doing whatever on the map and then someone tells you, hey, I've developed these plans and I need you to take a look. Well, you can go ahead and press that locate last button and that'll then focus your map on the last symbol that was placed. Next up in the list we have geoshapes. So these are quite similar, except these are your control measures as well as changeable shapes such as lines and areas. So if we go in area of interest here, you'll notice that we get even more options. You might even see control measure there. And this just means we get a different symbol set as we place. You'll notice we're using that vertex tool again, and you'll notice it fills out as we move. So we'll fill that out there, and then we'll say potentially it's a fires area. Maybe it's a no fire zone. We can go ahead and click send and you'll notice that gets updated on the map. Once again, we can edit these and we'll now talk about these last two tabs. So this is a geo trigger. So essentially if you place down a coordinated zone, whether that be a free fire zone or a no fire zone, you have the option to add a geo trigger. You can specify what you want it to trigger off of. So maybe you want to be alerted if any friendlies go into the no fire zone, or maybe you want to be alerted if anyone exits or enters. You have the option to do that with enter, exit, or both. You get a bit of a buffer distance, and then you even have the option to specify what you're searching for. So you could say, I want to know about every fighter that comes in and out. So we'll say it's a friendly, and we'll just say air units. So we'll go ahead and update that. We'll click the save button and then we'll click send. Now if we take this fighter here and say their position were to be updated to here inside this zone, you'll notice we get a notification. Once again, if they leave, you'll notice we get a notification. However, if we were to create a symbol that is a land unit, that obviously doesn't belong to the air units, and as it enters the geo trigger zone, no notification was triggered. Now the last tab here is your policy tab. So you can set some additional policies, such as whether or not you want alerts on people entering and exiting, or if you want to set it as an area of interest. So your map may begin to become a bit cluttered with users online. Say you want to focus on only one area. Maybe you're stationed at a base and quite frankly all you care about is the activity on the base. You want to know when people are coming and going, but you also don't care about seeing symbology around the place. You can do that by setting it to an interest zone, and that'll just take the other symbols off of the map to declutter. So we'll go ahead and actually just delete this to clean up the map a little bit, and we'll move on. Then we have free draw, which I believe we already touched on, or maybe we did not, pardon me. Free draw is a useful tool. The first two options you have here are point and multi-point, which we won't cover here because they're really quite simple. However, once we get into the line and polygon territory, it gets a bit more complex. So if you go ahead and select line, you then get greeted with a couple extra parameters. So you might want to draw a line in freeform. If so, you select the freehand, and then as you tap and drag on the screen, you'll notice that we draw. Once we're satisfied, we can either undo changes, move that around, resize it, what have you. We can either save, which we'll do there, and you'll notice that it gets placed on the map. We can then gather information about this, such as who created it and when it was created. Or we can then long press it again, and then you'll notice we get the option to either edit or send it. So we can send to everyone, we can send to our local network, or we can send directly to someone like we already discussed. So we'll just send to all. And now every user will get this same line drawn on their map. Once again, we can delete these though, and that'll update for everyone who has received it. I'll quickly show you a bit of the polygon. So you have more options here as well. And for this demonstration, we'll quickly look at the vertex. So once again, we get this crosshair back on your screen. And as we move it around and tap, we connect the points, and you'll see a polygon is being formed. I'll quickly show you that you don't need to save and then manually reselect to send. Instead, from here, in the bottom left, you can just click the send button and you can send it to all straight away if you want to. You'll notice that becomes draped on the map, and anybody who you send that to can see it as well. Once again, you can get some details about it, or you can edit it with a long press, and you can delete it, and that'll update for everyone as well. Finally, in this screen we have the chat menu. If we go ahead and press that, that takes us to the same place that the bell icon in the bottom left takes us. So we already discussed this, so I won't cover this again. Seems a bit redundant, but that's about all for the radial menu, both more and the main menu. So thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.